Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much to John and all the group who are behind organizing this space. It's very important to discuss the sport washing and what's going on really, why the sudden interest and focus on investing in sports by the Saudi officials and the Saudi government. I also want to thank Stanis for the extensive, important research that he's conducted. It's very informative. It is actually shedding a light on what's going on behind the scenes, who are the real players driving all this sport washing. And I hope I can shed the light on the human rights aspect by sharing our personal story, what happened to my brother, what happened to in terms of his case. And just to let you know, basically our story is just one of many, many out there, hundreds out there who are suffering like us, if not worse, on different levels and degrees. And it's the same, basically almost the same story and the same suffering repeated over and over. These human rights abuses have been increasing since MPS came to power. And as the sport washing and the investment in sports is increasing, the human rights abuses are increasing as well. So I'm going to start by sharing what happened to my brother. So in 2018, my brother was kidnapped from his place of work at the Red Crescent office in Riyadh by the Saudi secret police. So they showed up without a warrant and they took him, they escorted him out. And from that moment, we weren't able to communicate with him. He was basically disappeared for an entire 2 years before we were able to get any news from him. So when he was kidnapped that day, they took away his phone, they took away his car, and we were completely left in the dark. The only reason, or the only way for us to let us to find out that he was kidnapped is because my brother stayed in touch with us every single day. He always contacted us. We live in the United States and my brother works in Saudi Arabia. So he always called my mom on a daily basis. He stayed in touch with me and the rest of the family. He always sends messages and check on us. So that's how we found out, because the phone calls weren't going through, the messages weren't going through. So it clearly was something not normal, because my brother is very communicative. He always stays in touch with us. So the days went by and we're like really scared and worried, and we're trying to reach out to his friends, family in Saudi Arabia, like everyone who knows him, and nobody knows anything. Like nobody know where he went or where he disappeared, until his co-workers found our contact and reached out to my family in Riyadh to let them know that he was actually taken by the secret police from his office where he worked. And from that moment, my family continued to reach out to the Saudi secret police to ask them about my brother, and they kept denying any knowledge for an entire month before finally a clerk have confirmed that they had him in the system and that he is under investigation, and that's all they can tell us. They refused to give us any additional information, where he was kept, how is his health, if we can contact him, and after that, my family have filed a lot of requests for visitation or to get a phone call, and they all get ignored or denied. That continued for an entire 2 years before he was finally allowed to make a 1-minute call. And that 1-minute call happened only because of international pressure. And the first year, I didn't go public until an entire year went by, after we tried everything from internal channels, trying to reach out to the Saudi government in all the channels that we are aware of, from faxes, phone calls. My family in Riyadh have tried every possible channel to reach out, and we were just completely kept in the dark. So after I decided to actually go public, and the main reason actually I went public, because not only we weren't getting any information about my brother, but also I was receiving we were receiving information from witnesses that my brother was being brutally tortured. And it wasn't just one witness or two, it was multiple. So obviously there was actually, the torture was real. It was happening. And the last, message that really, drove me to decide, okay, I'm going to just go public. I cannot wait. I cannot just continue to be silent, because this is really, really getting bad. The witness told me that my brother may die from torture. So that's when I decided, okay, this is it. I'm going to have just to go public and, bring my brother's case out there and try to seek help. So I've reached out to all the different human rights organizations I can reach out to the United Nations. And I started, sharing our story on social media, and mainly on Twitter. And that pressure, or that visibility, have created the amount of pressure from human rights organizations and world leaders and governments to, continuously ask about my brother. And finally, we got a 1-minute phone call after 2 years, where we found out that he was kept in the Al-Higher prison, which is a notorious political prison in Saudi Arabia, well known, where political prisoners are kept. Then after that, he went into enforced disappearance again for another year. And after 3 years of after 3 years of being, unlawfully detained without any charge, he was brought to a secret sham trial. And again, this was because of, and also continued international pressure. So he was brought to this secret sham trial, and got sentenced to 20 years imprisonment, followed by 20 years travel ban, based on just freedom of speech, just for tweeting. And unfortunately, although he filed the appeal was the same way. They upheld the sentence, and the day where they upheld the sentence was actually within 24 hours, when the Newcastle United deal was announced, that the Saudi government or the Saudi officials have, got the United Castle deal, publicly have announced it. So, and it was the same week of Jamal Khashoggi's murder anniversary, the third anniversary of his, unfortunately, murder. So obviously the timing is really astonishing, that to me, because it's so personal, what our suffering, what we're going through, it was a clear indication that this is to distract our effort to get the international attention to what's going on to my brother's case. I was tweeting on a daily basis on what's going on, with the secret hearings, all the updates that are with my brother's case. So clearly that, the coincidence is just, shocking. There are many different cases and examples where there's, obviously, as the human rights abuses are increasing, we hear, for example, the beheading of minors, beheading of innocent people, mass beheading, and that at the same time we hear about news that the Saudi government have, obviously established a certain deal with sports stars or celebrity stars or entertainment events. So it's clearly to basically whitewash or just, distract the world from what's going on in terms of human rights. There are different cases where, other victims who are suffering, like my brother, for example, Salma Shihab, went almost very similar to what my brother is going through. She was sentenced to 27 years imprisonment. Noor Al-Qahtani, she was sentenced to 45 years imprisonment. And it's all based on posting online, freedom, just posting tweets or criticizing issues in the country, criticizing issues related to human rights, to women's rights, or even just following other activists or just retweeting. Some of the cases are imprisoned just, for retweeting. So unfortunately, the situation is really bad when it comes to human rights in Saudi Arabia. People are completely silenced. The crackdown on freedom of speech have been the worst than any time before. As of today, we haven't heard my brother now for over 2 years, 2 years and 2 months since we last heard anything about my brother. So now he is also under enforced disappearance. So this enforced disappearance have been continuous. And we don't know what's going on. Like when there's an unforced disappearance, usually that means the victim could be tortured, could be abused, in some cases could be murdered, and there is no way to check on them or to protect their rights. So unfortunately, there is no real laws in the country where you can enforce human rights or protection of people's rights. And when you hear about reforms, for example, Saudi Arabia have been investing so much to try to paint this image that there is reform and modernization. Unfortunately, it's not. It's just a whitewash from the outside to show the world, look, we have entertainment, we have sports, but in the reality, there's the fundamental rights of people are not protected. There is no real institutions or rule of law to protect, fundamental rights and respect to people's dignity. So these are not really modernization. Beheading minors is not modernization. Torturing people, imprisoning them, disappearing them is not modernization. Cracking on people, silencing people for over tweets or just posting on social media, asking about women's rights or advocating for women's rights or human rights or just criticizing certain issues like unemployment in the country. This is not modernization. Modernization is when you allow people to take part to protect their rights, to protect their fundamental rights and respect to their dignity. So last year, the United Nations have actually issued a decision that my brother is arbitrarily detained and called for his immediate and unconditional release. And unfortunately, my brother continued to be forcibly disappeared, and there is no response at all from the Saudi officials on my brother's situation, or not even allowing us to have any communication at all. All requests to get any calls or visits are either ignored or denied. So their situation is continuous. Human rights abuses are continuing to worsen in Saudi Arabia. The more there's sport washing and focus on entertainment and sports, investing in sports, the more the victims in Saudi Arabia are, suffering in silence, are not, obviously their stories are being diluted, and nobody, the focus will be what the Saudi government is aiming for, is to have the focus to shift from human rights abuses to entertainment and sports events. So instead of people thinking about Jamal Khashoggi, for example, or the cases of mass beheading, or the cases of disappearance and torture, like my brother's case and many other cases, they'll be thinking about Cristiano Ronaldo, or about entertainment and about their favorite stars. So I could talk forever, but this is just in summary what is going on. And I hope our story can just give you a glimpse of light of what is going on really on the ground in terms of human rights abuses. Again, this is just our story, and there are many, many others like us who are suffering in silence. A lot of them cannot even speak publicly about their cases. A lot of families are being threatened. They cannot really talk publicly about their cases. Again, thank you so much for hosting this space, and I'm going to pass it back to John.